Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me back. You already know what time it is. It is a beautiful Wisdom Wednesday, all right? And this video is not going to be too lengthy because the mosquitoes are out today, all right? You already know it's like dusk. The sun is about to set, and you know, with this new time change, you already know the sun is saying bye-bye at an early time. So guys, I hope that you're having an amazing week. I hope that you are blessed, all right? I hope that things are going your way. And I just stopped by today, all right, to bring an extra nugget of wisdom to you, all right? So guys, we're gonna hop on into it, okay? But if it's your first time here, don't forget to hit that button below. Make sure that you are subscribed, all right? I am Doremi Lo, and we are all here because we are excited and ready to grow up and to glow up with the Lord, all right? One step at a time, all right? So make sure that you are hitting that button, okay? Because you don't want to miss what the Lord has for you, all right? So guys, for today, we're hopping in to the wisdom for the day, all right? So this is so interesting. I was driving, all right, in a parking lot, and there was a gentleman who was in front of me, okay? And he was navigating his way out of this parking lot, all right? Now, this particular shopping plaza, I had been there before, all right? But literally years ago, probably maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, all right? And so I was not too sure how to navigate through the parking lot, okay? And so instead of relying on myself, I decided to follow the car in front of me, okay? Was it a good decision? No, all right? Did something bad almost happen? Yes, all right? So what happened is when I decided to follow the vehicle in front of me, I realized that I was exiting through the wrong way, all right? That was not an exit for me. That was actually an entrance, all right, for the cars that were entering the plaza. And so you can already tell what could have happened, all right? It could have been a literal head-on collision, all right? So I'm thanking God that that did not happen. But you know what I said out of my mouth? I said, oh my gosh, I should have found my own way out. I said I should have figured it out for myself, all right? So literally, guys, today's Wisdom Wednesday is inspired by the parking lot experience, all right? That one experience that I had recently in a parking lot, all right? It's important for us to learn how to navigate life on our own, all right? It's okay if you ask somebody for tips. It's okay if you ask somebody, how did you do it? All right? It's okay if you ask somebody for guidance, all right? And counsel, because the Lord tells us that what? There's safety in a multitude of counsel. Okay, there's a safety, all right, and a multitude of counsel. So excuse me, guys, I kind of slurred my words there, all right? There's safety in a multitude of counsel, all right? But what we don't want to do is rely on somebody else to tell us how to get out of a situation, all right? Because you know what happens? You end up crippling yourself. And so you might find yourself in that situation a second time or a third time and a fourth time, and you know what? You'll be stuck because you never learned how to figure it out for yourself, all right? You didn't rely on yourself, all right? You didn't use the gifts that the Lord has already given you, all right? Like your beautiful brain, all right? Your wisdom, your knowledge, your understanding, all right? Your ability to perceive, all right? You didn't use it, all right? You didn't use it to help yourself, all right? Instead, you ask somebody else, can you tell me how do I get out? Can you tell me what I should do? And so what you're doing is you're actually strengthening that person's ability to figure out life, all right? And to navigate through different situations. But for you, you're crippling yourself. All right, so if I was in that situation ever again, if I'm in another parking lot and I'm not too sure, like I don't remember the entrance or the exit, I'm just gonna use my own, all right, brain to literally, and my own eyes, all right, to look and, you know, the ability to read, because I can read, all right, I'm gonna read, and I'm gonna try to figure out exactly where, all right, I should go. Should I turn right? Should I turn left? All right, how should I navigate this particular parking lot? All right, because like I said, it literally could have been a head-on collision. And you know what's terrible? It would have been nobody's mistake. Like it would have been nobody's fault but my own. All right, and so that leads us to point number 2. When you are taking guidance from somebody else, when you are learning how to do something because somebody else told you what to do, if it doesn't work out, you, all right, are automatically going to blame that person. Why? Because you didn't figure it out for yourself. You simply followed them, all right? And so look how, like, can you imagine how important it is for us to literally be in a situation, use our own brain, all right, to conceptualize the situation and figure it out, all right? It's super important because, like I said, the next time you're going to know how to get out of that situation, you're not going to be a novice to it. And then on top of that, what happens is you don't have anyone else to blame, all right? So our life is our life, all right? God has allowed for every single one of us, all right, to have our own opportunities, all right, to figure things out for ourselves, all right? And so it's important that we don't rely on other people, but it's important that we think for ourselves, all right? Because it's literally amazing, all right, the ability to think for yourself, all right? And that's what makes us different from animals, all right? So I know, you know, what science likes to say, but science is a lie, all right? Well, with certain things, all right? That's a lie, all right? I'm not an animal. You're not an animal, all right? You're a human. And because God made you a human, you have free will. And why do you have free will? Because you have the opportunity, all right, to think for yourself. You have the faculties, all right, you have a brain, and your brain allows for you to what? Think about different components and to literally take apart a situation so that you can figure out what is best for you. All right, so guys, I'm so excited that you were able to join me today on this Wisdom Wednesday. All right, and I know that there's somebody out there where you have been taking information from other people, where you have been asking for a lot of advice and you are not figuring it out for yourself, all right? And remember, there's also a beauty. There's a beauty to figuring out life, all right? There's a beauty to figuring out a situation. There's a beauty, all right, to digging yourself out of a bad situation, all right? Because like I said, you're bringing yourself experience, all right, that you're not going to get, all right, anywhere else unless you think for yourself. All right, so guys, let us start thinking for ourselves. That's why God has literally given us the brain. We have the capacity to think for ourselves. And that's why it's beautiful that, yeah, sometimes if you want to verify something, there's no problem in asking God, like, hey, what do you think about the situation? But then there are literal situations and things and problems, all right, where the Lord is saying that you can figure that out for yourself, all right? So sometimes we might ask him for help, all right? And sometimes you don't hear anything. It's not that he's silent because, you know, he doesn't have anything to say. It's not that he's silent because, you know, he's just taking a break. It's not that he's silent because he didn't hear you. Sometimes God is silent because he wants you to figure it out for yourself, all right? He wants to know that, hey, the last time you went through this situation, how did you navigate through that situation? And how can you apply it to where you are now? All right, he wants us to learn how to think for ourselves. All right, so remember, even David saved himself, all right, when he realized, I forgot his name, but the king wanted to kill him. And he said, oh my gosh, all right, if he realizes that I'm a threat because he knows that I'm a mighty warrior and he knows that I'm extremely intelligent and wise and I might not become king, all right, if he takes me, you know, if he takes my life, what did David at the time do? David said, I'm gonna have to play like crazy, all right? I'm gonna have to play that like I don't have any common sense and that, I'm special, all right? For lack of better terms, all right? And so what does he do? He starts spitting on his own beard, all right? Spitting on himself, all right? And so listen, guys, that's what David decided to do in that moment. But you know what? It worked, right? David is alive and David went on to become King David, all right? And so it just goes to show that God wants us to think for ourselves, all right, and figure life out, all right? So yes, again, there is safety, all right, in a multitude of counsel. So it's okay to ask others, but always sit with yourself first, all right, and think about your situation and think about how you can dig yourself out of that pit, all right, so that if you find yourself in this situation in the future, you'll know how to get out. All right, so guys, thank you so much for joining me. It is a pleasure that you're here with me. Don't forget that I am Do-Re-Mi Lo, and on my channel you are definitely going to go up with the Lord, all right? So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, all right? And come on back because, you know, we'll be here, all right? tomorrow I have Bible study, all right, that is going to be uploaded. And so guys, make sure that you're here for that, all right? And you already know it's like sweater weather, so I'm excited, all right? I'm like pulling out all my little hoodies, and I'm pulling out my sweaters, and I'm pulling out my jackets, you know, I'm excited. So guys, let's just enjoy where we are in life, and I'll see you soon. Be safe.